Now, at 8:53, with a career spanning nearly 30 years, Sinead O'Connor's music has covered everything from chart-topping pop to roots, folk and reggae. Now she's turned her attention to Chicago blues, inspired by artists like Howlin' Wolf and Buddy Guy.
She's a songwriter, of course, known as much for her controversial opinions as her singing voice, and with a new album called I'm Not Bossy, I'm the Boss, it would seem that mellow isn't necessarily part of her repertoire.
We're going to ask her about that in just a moment, but first, let's remind ourselves of her fantastic voice.
And Sinead's with us now. Morning, Sinead, how are you doing?
I'm good. I don't remember that hair.
It was great hair, though, Sinead.
With you, your hair's either long or short. It's never betwixt or between,
I think
is
that
it?
must have been a wig.
I've got a question for you, though, but the cover of the new album there, which you can see there, which is surprising for you, really. What were you saying with that? Because there you are in... Is that... It's sort of leather,
it's actually
leather
latex,
sort of stuff.
yeah. The
Latex,
lady who made the dress keeps getting upset because everybody keeps saying it's PVC. Really, it was just publicity, to be honest. I knew that nobody had ever seen me looking like a female, do you know what I mean? Nobody ever saw me really looking like a girl, so I knew it wasn't meant to be the album cover, but I knew if I put out a couple of shots with hair and a dress and everything, everybody would run them and they'd have to talk about the album, you know. But the album's not a blues album, just to clear up a misunderstanding. The songwriting, perhaps, behind the album is inspired by Chicago blues, but it's not at all a blues album. It's more that I spent the last 2.5 years really listening to a lot of Chicago blues and watching a lot of what the guys had to say about songwriting. In particular, there's a guy called Willie Dixon who wrote nearly every blues song that you can think of. Also Chuck Berry and a couple of people like that, Buddy Guy also. They kind of left songwriting lessons, and the thing is, everything we know as rock and roll came from blues. So if you can get the kind of blues pattern of songwriting into your head, you can translate that to any style of music. So that's pretty much what I hope I've done. So it's a pop rock record. It doesn't sound remotely blues, but perhaps the style of songwriting is inspired by it.
How does that happen? How do you, because it does sound more poppy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you get to that from those roots?
It's really easy peasy. I mean, the thing is that really, you know, genuinely all what we know as rock and pop music came from blues. When you trace it back, its history came from blues, and in its time, blues was pretty much like rap, insofar as it had the same format, which meant anybody could write a song. It wasn't too complicated. It was 12 bars. You had 3 verses. The first 3 lines were the same. The last line was different. You had a bridge, so anybody could do it, you know. But yeah, when you trace back rock and pop, you end up back at blues. So it's really, it's very. I always say if you could describe music or talk about music, you wouldn't need music. So it's very hard to describe how you could translate it. But if you listen to any style of music that we know, you know, as rock and pop, you'll trace it back to blues, you know. So.
Let's have a listen to your blues influenced, but not blues music. Yeah. And here's Take Me to Church. When you sing something like Take Me to Church, are you? I was wondering about the songs on the album. Are they about characters, or how many of them are about you yourself?
They're characters mostly. I started with the last album I did writing characters, and what happened was people were sending me movie scripts over the few years previous and asking me to write songs from the point of view of the characters, and I just fell in love with doing that, you know. So I guess with this album, there's probably 2 or 3 songs that are sort of personal / autobiographical, but there's about 4 female characters on the record, apart from myself, and there's one who turns up a bit more often than the others.
Yeah, but in one track, when you sing the lines, I don't much like life, my head got wrecked by the business, I became the stranger no one sees. That is you,
Well,
it?
that would be one of the more personal songs, yeah, probably. There are 3 songs that are kind of personal. One is called How About I Be Me, which was supposed to be on the last album. It didn't make it in the post. Then there's a song called Dense Water, Deeper Down, and then this song. But the others, there are about 4 female characters, and there's one who kind of turns up a bit more often than the others, who's trying to kind of work out something.
Do you think many musicians get wrecked by the business?
I think it can be, I suppose like any job, it has hazards, do you know what I mean? And it can take a while to get used to the hazards, put it that way, you know, so it can be a little bit of a head wreck, you know. I'm sure probably you deal with something similar yourself, you know, and maybe not quite so extreme, but there are hazards around being well known, perhaps, do you know what I mean? I don't know on what scale they are when you're doing what you're doing for a living, but there are hazards around how you're perceived, or whether or not it's perhaps isolating that you're well known, or, you know what I mean, whether people will want to hang out with you for the right reasons, stuff like that.
You talk about perception. One of the things that I'm fascinated by, Bill touched on it, you know, how you look on the album cover, how you look in that video. Is it almost like you're acting a role at that point?
No, that's me. It's just I happen to have a wig on. You know what I mean? No, not at all. Like, it's me. I mean, the clothes are mine. Those are clothes I would go out in. Do you know what I mean? But it's just it's a wig. But no, I mean, I am what I would call a Stanislavski method singer. That's what I call it. So we play characters. Whether the character happens to be us is beside the point almost. But more often than not, it's not us. You know?
And you've picked up on this campaign from a few months ago. I'm not bossy, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
You know, that's the title of the album.
Yeah.
Bossy is such a difficult word for women, isn't it? What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by?
Yeah, when you're putting your name to that, how do you interpret it?
Well, do you know what? I basically, the campaign came around in February, and I'd never really heard of it before, but in the music business, a lot of artists will confirm this, that musical artists, male and female, we're often treated as if we're working for the people who are actually working for us. So you sign your deal when you're a teenager, you kind of get, this thing gets inculcated in you that everyone's doing you a favour. And in fact, it's the other way around. When you sign a record deal, you're doing them the favour, but it's encouraged in you not to perceive yourself as a boss, to perceive everybody else as the boss, and to go along with everyone's agenda and not be difficult. Easy is going along with everyone's agenda, which is usually financial, and it's not always the artist's agenda, it's financial, you know. And I find that that's slightly exaggerated when you're female, to be validated as a boss, to be heard, or for people to actually act on something you might ask them to do. You'll ring your accountant and looking for documents, they'll tell you don't need them. You'll be told you shouldn't have internet banking because you might press the wrong button and spend all your money. Stuff like that. Or you'll issue instructions to your very expensive lawyer who will ignore your instructions and take instructions from your even more expensive somebody else. Do you know what I mean? Which are in opposition.
Yeah.
So that's often the way it goes. When I saw this campaign, the campaign was aimed at young girls, really. It's more the campaign about you know, not putting pressure on girls when they want to be assertive, encouraging girls to be assertive, and obviously I would identify with that. But I actually found the campaign inspiring as a female boss. That as a direct result of the campaign, I was really able to take my power as a boss, in fact, and let go people who I felt were... The irony is people like me and singers and that we have this huge public voice, but behind the scenes we're voiceless quite a lot of the time. So the campaign really allowed me to take back my voice, you know, and behind the scenes, and be able to have people around me who really wouldn't invalidate.
I hate to be bossy, but we're out of time.
Time to go.
But fascinating as ever talking to you, Sinead. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be speaking to Steve Leonard from the TV series Operation Wild in just a moment.
First is last quick look at what's happening where you are.